Hi, I'm Wiley, and you want to know. So the 6th umbral moon is fast approaching, my friends, and patch 7.4 will soon crest the horizon, bringing with it the wrapping up of the Dawntrail expansion story and introducing the initial story hooks for our Warrior of Light's next big adventure. Now, despite Emet-Selch, my king, asking if we know the present state of affairs in Mericidia, kind of indicating the matter could be more pressing than a treasure hunt, in my heart of hearts, I want to believe that our next adventure will take us to the north of Othard and into the Blindfrost. I want a real treasure hunt, goddammit. Make Final Fantasy One Piece, you cowards! If you would do me the kindness of lending me your attention for the length of this video, I can hopefully make a believer of you also. On with the video! According to the Far East Geography section in Volume 2 of the Encyclopaedia Eorzea, the Blindfrost is the sea that greets Othard's northern shoreline, perpetually choked with drifting ice floes and hammered by violent storms. The Blindfrost has no known safe route for travel or trade. Which sounds to me a little bit like the Red Line from One Piece. Now our summer holiday on the western continent is coming to an end and we're well rested from all of our previous world-saving heroics. What better time than now to head out on another great adventure? And where better to travel than to the icy north? The Blindfrost's coastline reaches wide, from the Dalvalan Grath in the northwestern extremities of Othard's tundra and the Cordillera Mountains, to the Rietgear Peninsula, a great hook of land that protrudes from the northeastern corner of Othard. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wiley, you've spoken more about where the Blindfrost is located and only a single sentence of what the Blindfrost actually is. Surely that's not it. Well, yes. Officially, that's all we know about the Blindfrost, other than what I alluded to in the intro.
Or the treasure islands beyond the frozen waters of Blindfrost in Othard's north.
Now, I would draw your attention to the word beyond, which would technically infer that our ultimate destination is past the Blindfrost. But what is an adventure without a journey? So, to me, this is the bigger question at hand. As I previously mentioned, I do kind of think that the current available lore would indicate that whatever is happening in Mericidia would, and possibly should, take precedence over an adventure to the north, as the phrasing of our god king Emet-Selch's question to us does imply a hint of urgency in Mericidia receiving our attention. But for me personally, the Mericidia situation feels more akin to a political drama. Yes, I am inferring that from that single sentence. And considering the current state of the real world, I feel people need an escape from this discourse and to live their life as the freest person in the world aboard a pirate ship, reforming the Scions as the Straw Hats. There is an interesting and pretty fun little detail in the Far East Geography section of Volume 2 of the Encyclopaedia Eorzea, in the description of the Rietgear Peninsula itself. On the northern edge of Rietgear Peninsula, the Aras is an unbroken line of sheer cliffs. Efforts to construct a major port in the area have been discouraged by the ocean's seasonal freezing, as well as the presence of Megaptera, sea monsters said to dwarf even the largest Gyuki. You heard me correctly. As we set sail through the tumultuous waters of the Blindfrost, exploring the uncharted land masses, we will no doubt come into contact with Sea Kings, which, according to the One Piece wiki, are huge carnivorous monsters that inhabit all of the world's oceans. They are especially prevalent throughout the calm belt surrounding the Grand Line. Now, that description, whilst epic in scale, may sound a lot like they don't really travel into the Blindfrost proper. which will probably be the case, as I think these kingly beasts are part of the reason for the treasure isles beyond remaining hidden for so long. So what if, instead of mindless gargantuan beasts, they're savage protectors of the entrance to both the Blindfrost and what lies beyond? Or even beneath?
Somebody ring the alarm.
So, in an epic gut punch, as I was writing this script and recording some initial dialogue, the developers released the 7.4 patch site, with the name of the patch revealed to be Into the Mist. So, I can only hope that this revelation further serves to shore up my claims, both prior to this message and beyond in the video, and guide our warriors of light towards my dreams of both piracy and scallywagging. What I find interesting about the area around the Blindfrost is that whilst the map is obscured, there's also not really a lot to obscure, which sets my mind to 3 potential theories about the areas we're likely to be exploring. 1. There are a group of landmasses obscured behind the map's fog, which we will be able to explore individually. 2. There is a large landmass, only it's not just obscured by the fog, but by a shield of some sort. And 3. Beyond the Blindfrost doesn't necessarily mean traversal horizontally, but vertically. For me, the second point above seems least likely, as the storytelling behind it would be rather lazy, seeing as we were just introduced to Solution 9 in Dawntrail, a giant dome obscured by a shield of some kind, and I don't really think they'd want to retread the same ground so soon. I do, however, feel like there is some precedence for a combination of points 1 and 3, as if I follow my logic train from One Piece, what if the treasure of the islands just beyond the mists of the Blindfrost weren't riches, but a location? What if we were to find our own set of poneglyphs that not only reveal the location of a hidden treasure, but how to safely navigate the harsh waters of the Blindfrost to make it there safely to a hidden settlement in the depths of the waters? Just like the underwater settlements of the Ruby Sea, Suino Sato and Tamamizu, or even Amarot itself, what if Emet-Selch weren't the only unsundered to settle at the bottom of the ocean? What if there were a long-forgotten culture in the frozen depths, cut off from the world above and protecting the final shard, the 11th reflection, locked in ice? And what if those who had been left to protect it discovered that their charge had been defeated? Revealed at the end of patch 7.3's MSQ, we witnessed Kalik speaking with an unknown Ascian, and to whom he refers to "our winter appears." So this is in no doubt a hint that these unknown benefactors likely reside within a frosty climate. But also, in an interview with The Gamer, when asked about these winterers, Yoshida responded simply, "Checking the meaning of winterer helps. So let's do that." A winterer is a person, animal, or thing that winters, meaning it visits or resides in a specific place during the winter season, or it refers to someone or something that endures a period of hardship or difficulty, such as a difficult period of life. Now, this is where I specifically need you to let me cook. Just a little bit. What if this tribe of winterers were specifically gathered together or even created by an unsundered, with the sole purpose of obscuring both their location and their treasure from their brothers? An entire civilization created eons before, oblivious to the outside world as, let's say, whilst their city settlement is surrounded by treacherous waters and biting cold, their world within would be more akin to something like Amarot, where it might be mixed with more of a Curthan architecture, let's say. I feel like something like this would be petitioned by Elidibus when the first attempts at rejoining had failed, in an effort to help maintain the balance between light and dark. One of the interesting things about Elidibus is whilst his loyalty to Zodiac was ultimately absolute, so too was his affection for the star. So what if he hid the 11th shard where he hoped his kin wouldn't find it? Now, if it's not clear enough already, I'm an ideas person. The detail's less fun, and the devil's in there. So it's also spooky. So if we ask the questions of like who this population of keepers or winterers are, what do they look like? What do they wear? Will their glams be banging? I've got no answers for you, unfortunately. They could be part of the Zayla tribe that broke away from the steep and into the Dalvalan Grath. They could be more akin to the ancient ones that we met in Elpis and in Amarot. They could be an entirely new race altogether. Ultimately, their appearance is immaterial, but the story that we tell to reach them, that could play out like an epic poem. Just like One Piece, it also allows for some other interesting ideas. Now that Emet-Selch's been defeated, Lahabrea's ether was consumed by the primal Thordan, Elidibus's ether was offered up to aid the Warrior of Light's travel to the past, and Zodiac itself was roundly defeated. What more is there to do for the remaining Ascians? Just as we witnessed Fandaniel's epic crash out once the most powerful remaining Ascians were dead, we also enjoyed Gaia deciding to dedicate her power to helping Reem. All this means for the moment is that the Ascian we see visiting Calyx at the end of The Promise of Tomorrow isn't necessarily bad or good. All we know is that they want the interdimensional key. But the question is, what for? Well, what if it's the key to the shard? Now, with the Ascians' dwindled number, perhaps they're looking to do what Gaia did and dedicate their powers to restoration and wish to take care of the world as it is now, or even to move on to the 11th reflection, as the source holds too many sour memories. Lest we forget, before their civilization was decimated by the final days, the Ancient Ones wholeheartedly believed that enriching the world and uplifting one another was one of the highest callings one could have. Another intrusive thought I've had is, what if the shard itself was sealed by the Amarotan named Azam, and the key created using Azam's ether, not only therefore holding the key to accessing the shard itself, but even offering an explanation as to why the key responds the way it does to the Warrior of Light, aka the current incarnation of Azam. So finally, I would be remiss to neglect Yoshida's yappings recently about how 8.0 will essentially be a narrative reset or another realm reborn, which I feel my Blindfrost speculation kind of fits into quite nicely. A hidden shard, a sealed civilization, a frozen world untouched by the last 12 years of MSQ escalations. Hello? All I know is what I've proposed throughout this video would not only be entertaining, mainly to me, unfortunately, but it would also help wrap up the lore of the Ascians, potentially introduce us to a new reflection to explore and adventure in, not to mention new goofballs to punch in the head, offer the new players an opportunity to start at the end, with the Ascian lore giving a Cliff's Notes versions to the Ascians as a whole, essentially, and allowing them to move off into a new storyline. It's essentially a clean slate that continues to honor everything that came before it. It's the kind of pivot that Square will only really get to take advantage of once every decade or so, when a larger story arc comes to a close. And what better way to start over than with "We Are" blaring as we swashbuckle our way through the Blindfrost, hunting for hidden treasure, uncovering ancient secrets, and discovering a whole reflection, our next big adventure. It feels like a true rebirth. And that's it. That's the end of my ramblings. I hope that if I haven't been able to convince you, I've at least been able to entertain you somewhat for I don't know how long this video is going to last. This was my first time creating a video like this, using an actual video editor and having to sit down and record all of these lines, which I did over the course of a few days. So I understand that the audio is going to be a bit all over the place because I got sick during those 2 days and my throat hurts. So I hope it wasn't too rough on you. I had a lot of fun at least. So I guess all that's left to say is I've been Wiley, and from Amarot's depths to the edge of our star, we remember him, and we remember them. Love ya.
A test of your reflexes!